Good afternoon, everybody. Today we're going to be discussing 21 Capital, the new joint venture between Cantor Fitzgerald, SoftBank, and Tether, and CEO Jack Mallers. Certainly, this is the most exciting news to come out of last week, so I'm excited to get into it in detail with my analysis. Before we begin, though, I want to warn you that the information I'm about to share today is not just sensitive, but it is forbidden knowledge. This is not your typical Bitcoin going up presentation. This is something much, much deeper than that. The geopolitical ramifications at play are staggering. A lot of people are confused about what 21 Capital even is because it has such a unique structure that we haven't seen before. A lot of people are saying that it's a MicroStrategy clone, which is inaccurate. Really, everything I've seen is a profound mischaracterization because something like this has never been done before. I want to be clear. I think we are witnessing the financial equivalent of MK Ultra. This is a hidden psychological and geopolitical operation unfolding at the peak of global instability. We are entering the fourth turning, which is the final act of a long societal cycle, and 21 Capital is positioning itself not just as the participant in that crash, but it's the architect of what will happen in the post-crash. You are about to see the blueprints for the new monetary order that will take us into the 2030s and beyond. Let's talk about what 21 Capital really is. It is the prototype for the next monetary empire. It is a Frankenstein hybrid of three elements. Number one, sovereign-grade liquidity laundering. They are going to use synthetic instruments and shadow assets to move trillions across borders invisibly and outside traditional regulatory frameworks. Two, regulatory capture. They're not going to be fighting the system. They're going to be embedding themselves inside of the system, exploiting loopholes, buying influence, and constructing legal fortresses nobody can see until it's too late. And yes, they're going to be accumulating a lot of Bitcoin, but they're also going to be weaponizing Bitcoin. They're going to turn it into the foundation for the new corporate sovereignties that will outlast many of the world's nation states. 21 Capital, properly understood, is constructing a financial organism that will thrive on collapse. You have to understand when sovereign currencies rot from within, which is what happens with fiat currencies and debt-based systems, this is all inevitable. This structure will already be in place. It's going to be offering an escape hatch for the elite when the crash happens. Now, part of this multi-headed dragon is Tether. And we need to understand Tether and what it's really become. It's no longer pegged to dollars. It is dollars as far as functionality is concerned. Offshore dollars, unregulated dollars, and rogue dollars specifically. Every Tether minted is a dollar that has escaped the shackles of US treasuries. It's a dollar that slipped through the bars of the old system and has gone feral. Tether is the black liquidity that oils the gears of everything from emerging black markets to corporate Bitcoin accumulation to shadow statecraft operations that we won't even hear about until the documents come out 50 years from now. Really, it functions as the Offshore Federal Reserve. It's a liquidity machine for the parallel economy, and the people that are going to be taking advantage of what Tether can offer are going to be the ones with the leg up when the crash happens. So through this mechanism, 21 Capital can always tap into a pool of capital that is completely outside of the control of the US government. And here's the important part. While they're doing that, they can still denominate the wealth in the unit that the world trusts implicitly. So think of Tether as, they're going to fuel the Bitcoin adoption, but they're also going to fuel the geopolitical insurgency against the existing monetary order. Now let's move to SoftBank, which is just the most misunderstood player in the whole equation. SoftBank isn't investing like a traditional venture firm anymore. It's really behaving more like a pension fund. And it's kind of tasked with one mission in this partnership where they need to exfiltrate capital as much as they possibly can before the incoming collapse. Their job isn't necessarily to win on fiat terms, but their job is to sacrifice mountains of fiat, billions of it, if that means embedding just a fraction of that into Bitcoin before the global debt spiral hits escape velocity. That's what they have to do. We're entering a new phase, what I call lifeboat capitalism, where governments cannot fix the debt bubble anymore. The dollar cannot remain the center of gravity anymore. And SoftBank knows that when the music stops, the only seats that matter are the ones made of Bitcoin. This company is going to be very happy to burn $100 billion if it means that $10 billion is in escape capital. If it's in Bitcoin, they'd be totally fine with that. Because in the fourth turning, survival is not measured by a quarterly return of a company. It's measured by who holds the most real money at the end. And SoftBank, reckless and chaotic and erratic as they have been in their entire history, they understand that at a level than most other traditional finance institutions do, because you see them involved in something like this. Now, next up, we have Cantor Fitzgerald. Tether is kind of the offshore printing press. SoftBank is the kamikaze capitalist. Cantor Fitzgerald is the regulatory Trojan horse. You got to think of the names that have been attached to Cantor Fitzgerald, and Howard Lutnick, for example, is now in the executive branch of the U.S. government in a very powerful position. So this company's not going to be fighting the SEC. They know the SEC. They've memorized the CFTC's blind spots. They know which Fed emergency liquidity valves still work. And even when the public narrative says that they're closed, they'll know what levers to pull. When the crash comes, and it will, Cantor will be the one building the private swap lines between the carcasses of the fiat banks and the new Bitcoin fortresses. It's going to be that intermediary. You see, when collapse happens, there is no fairness. There's just those who planned for it and those who didn't. Think about it this way. Cantor is building the tunnels underneath the city while everybody is arguing about pothole repairs. They're just on the next wavelength. Now, here's the game plan that you need to tattoo on your brain. Extend, pretend, and exfiltrate. You need to extend the dollar's dominance a little longer by offering synthetic Bitcoin products, ETFs, stablecoins, derivatives, what have you. You need to let the public think that they're owning the Bitcoin, while really the Bitcoin is being accumulated in secret behind the scenes. They're going to pretend that the system is healthy. They're going to be hiring TikTok influencers to explain why everything's fine. They're going to exfiltrate wealth into Bitcoin before the sovereign debt bomb explodes and all the fiat currencies on the planet are vaporized. So you need to understand that the fourth turning is actually a liquidity heist right under your nose. Now, if you think the corporations of 2025 are powerful, you need to buckle up, because what 21 Capital and companies like Strategy are building is not just a bigger balance sheet. They're becoming sovereign entities. They are going to be micronations with monetary reserves larger than half the countries on Earth. So you need to imagine a corporation, right, that has its own currency reserves, controls its own offshore liquidity rails, maintains private transfers between governments that are too weak to resist, and they don't even lobby regulators because they just write the script. In the future, the United States won't even be regulating companies like 21 Capital because it will exist as a regulatory appendage. It'll be a compliance department outsourced to old politicians, while the real power is wielded by the sovereign entities that are owning the Bitcoin. In post-sovereign capitalism, liquidity is going to be the law and governance is going to be optional. Now, here's the final red pill. The fourth turning is not a future event, because it's happening right now, and you're living through it whether or not you realize it. You're not a citizen anymore. You are a shareholder in somebody else's escape plan. The old monetary system is dead. It's gone. You're not getting it back. This is the new paradigm. So you can either take part, you can buy Bitcoin, put it in cold storage, you can become a shareholder of one of these institutions, but the fourth turning is happening as we speak right now. 21 Capital is just a new type of prototype. Strategy is the real God mode blueprint. Sailors halfway to owning the next global monetary base. In the 2030s, you're not even going to be voting with ballots anymore. You're going to be voting with your liquidity preference. Like, you can vote, like, I want exposure to the rotting fiat empire, or allegiance to the Bitcoin-backed corporate sovereignties that actually have money, security, and all the exit plans. The fourth turning sponsor is not the government, it is Bitcoin. And it's the corporations who get there first that are going to write the rules of the monetary world. Now, the good news is that you're still kind of early. The bad news is you have about 2 years to get on the right side of history, because it's happening real fast. Now, let's get tactical for a moment. 21 Capital, it's a very important prototype. They're proving that you can create a sovereign-grade corporate treasury out of thin air with Bitcoin. 42,000 Bitcoin, you know, that's not bad for a launch pad. But then you have Strategy, which is the Bitcoin monolith. I think they have 538,200 Bitcoin right now. They're really accelerating toward what I call the terminal velocity financial dominance. The point where any single corporate entity holds such a massive, irrecoverable share of the hardest money on earth that no sovereign currency can ever touch them ever again. So 42,000 Bitcoin is an impressive start, but over 500,000 at terminal velocity at the rate that Sailor is buying right now is divine right as far as I'm concerned. You have to think of it that they have an unassailable monopoly on time itself right now. They've just gotten such a big head start, and the runway is so long that all subsequent buyers, they're just going to be building the moat. They're going to be stacking the staircase underneath Sailor. It's pretty hopeless for the competitors. It'll be interesting to see the people who try the hardest, though. So let's zoom out quick. Think of the geopolitical ramifications. So what happens when all the corporations control the majority of the Bitcoin? You get corporate states with harder monetary reserves than sovereign nations do, private military contracts instead of national armies, off-chain arbitration courts that eclipse international law. The Federal Reserve will still exist in the medium-term future. It'll still pump liquidity, but that won't even matter anymore because the real monetary base, the base that matters for everybody in the world, will not be the US dollar anymore. It will be Bitcoin, and it will be warehoused by the corporate powers with no loyalty to any flag. Really, the corporate elite who got there first will own time itself. Everybody is going to rent their existence at a markup. So here's where we land. 21 Capital is a bit of a laboratory right now. They're working on it. Some mad scientists. We've never seen this type of corporate structure with what they're doing before, not even close. Strategy is the tried and true monetary base as far as I'm concerned. No signs of slowing down. The accumulation is just insane. We have to admit that Bitcoin is the weapon, and I think everybody who's in the know knows this. The fourth turning has found its sponsor. It's not the IMF, it's not the Fed, it's not the World Bank. It is Bitcoin, and it's the sovereign nations that are going to be holding the most of it. When the next phase hits, you're not going to be asked to participate. You'll simply be informed that citizenship is obsolete, that liquidity is law, and your options are simple. You can either stack Bitcoin and sovereign up, or you can become cannon fodder in the war of the last monetary system. None of this is speculation. Everybody knows that the dollar is going to fail, that debt-based systems are going to fail. This is succession. The escape velocity has already begun. The only question left is whether you're heavy enough to be pulled into the gravity of the old fiat order, or light enough, sovereign enough, to ascend into the new order. There will be no second invitation.